Hello my fellow gamer, it's Griffin here. Recently I received a lot of requests to create a beginner's guide for Elden Ring, from character creation screen to defeating the last boss in Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree, a step-by-step guide how to level up efficiently, fast, and how to get our character ready for higher content. Also how to level up our weapon or weapons as much as possible, as fast as we can, where to find respective weapons, and also smithing or smithing stones to upgrade them. There are a lot of new players that discover this amazing game for the first time, or players that have quitted the game in the past and haven't returned due to lack of direction or content being too difficult compared to the level of their character. Also, some players had concerns about missing out on items or quests if they would progress too quickly through the map. When is the right time to transition to another area and where to go next, as the map is massive? Some players have limited time to play and they want to feel a good sense of progression in the amount of time spent in the game. Therefore, I decided to make a guide that will encompass all this and more. It will be quite a project. It will be presented in chapters, so stay tuned for more future videos on this channel that will cover this massive project. A friendly suggestion though, if you're new to Elden Ring, feel free to explore and play the game at your own pace. Discover the beauty and sheer size of this magnificent game without a guide. There is a lot to discover, a lot to learn, and a lot to struggle with and eventually overcome, and this is the beauty of the first solo Elden Ring journey. If you're looking for that pure solo Elden Ring experience, then this guide is not for you, as there will be massive spoilers ahead. If you are looking for a very fast step-by-step leveling guide and you don't care about spoilers or some cheesy content, as we will cheese some of the powerful foes in Elden Ring to progress fast, then let's dive in. Chapter 1. In this video we'll go back to basics in Elden Ring. A step-by-step guide how to get a comfortable edge by leveling super fast and gathering some essential items right from the start. Also, we will start few quest lines that we'll cover and complete later in the game in future chapters. Feel free to follow my character on screen, and if you have any suggestions or questions regarding the leveling up process, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will need to decide right from the start the build we want to play and the weapon or weapons we would like to use. For the purpose of this guide, we'll focus on strength, vigor, and endurance. Later on, we'll add to the mix 25 faith to be able to cast powerful incantations like Golden Vow and Flame Grant Me Strength. Our weapon of choice will be the Great Stars, with Wild Strike's Ash of War, at least at the beginning to mid-game. The build is very flexible, so we can use other strength weapons or different Ashes of War if we choose to do so. Some may say, but Griffin, that is a weapon that we will discover way later in the game. How are we going to create a build with Great Stars from the beginning? That's a great question, and I'm happy you asked. We need to set up few goals that we want to achieve before fighting the first Shard Bearer, main boss in the first area. We'll level up to 35 in about 30 minutes. We'll get both sides of Dectus Medallion to be able to access Altus Plateau area. We'll get Poison Mist and Bloodflame Blade incantations. We'll start most of the quest lines and discover most sites of grace and maps in Limgrave, Whipping Peninsula, Liurnia of the Lakes, Caelid, Altus Plateau and Capital Outskirts, Mount Gelmir, and also we'll reach Volcano Manor. We'll get the Great Star Weapon. We'll get the Smithing Stone Miners Bell-Bearing 1 and 2 to gain access to infinite supply of Smithing Stones 1, 2, 3 and 4. We'll get 12 Smithing Stones 5 and 6, about that a bit later, and also 2 Smithing Stones 7, and we'll upgrade Great Stars to level 19. Yes, that is correct. We'll get the 3 Sentinel Armor set, and we'll level up our flasks to +5. Let's do that in 3.5 hours. After we achieve all this, we'll crush the first Shard Bearer, main boss in the first area. In this first chapter, we will focus on achieving the first goal, level up to 35 in about 30 minutes. Also, we'll start few quest lines at the Round Table Hold. We will find 1/2 of Dectus Medallion and also 2 Smithing Stone 7. Along the way, we'll also discover a few important sites of grace in Limgrave and Caelid. Also, I will explain different aspects of the game, reference certain items as we progress that will be especially useful for new players or for players that haven't played in a long time and are just returning to the game. For example, raw fruit is a useful ingredient to craft a gold pickle fowl foot item that once used will boost rune acquisition by about 30% for the next 3 minutes. We can buy this recipe in a future chapter. The golden scarab, a talisman we'll find in a future chapter as well, once equipped will boost rune acquisition by an additional 20% and yes, can stack with the effect of gold pickle fowl foot for very fast progression. In a future chapter, I will present a very easy way to acquire ingredients to be able to craft as many golden pickle fowl feet we want, say that 10 times, and how to get golden scarab talisman. Once we rest at this site of grace, we'll be introduced to Melina, a very important NPC that by accepting her accord will gain the option to use the rune we gain to level up. Also, will give us Torrent, our trusty mount. Now we can travel back to Church of Ely, site of grace, where we'll meet Witch Rani and will receive our first summon, the Lone Wolf's Ashes.
This way, tarnished. May I have a word? Apply on the word. I'd heard and upon the talk thou art as the call for. I was instructed by torrents. 'Tis a bell for summon the spirits, now it is that. I doubt we. How long will it be for the time?
After that, we'll talk to Kale again and we can purchase the torch, an item that we will need a bit later.
There are, if the mood, my people, which is why, but thanks, I think this your people. Perhaps you see that we have a saying, lament not, but that is our call. Just the way we... Goodbye. Nice to do.
From here, we travel back to Gatefront side of Grace and we need to pick up few very important items. The flail, the map of the area, and the whetstone knife. The flail is going to be very useful in fighting a specific enemy very soon. The map will help us navigate through the region with ease, and also finding the map or maps for each area is one of our goals mentioned earlier. The whetstone knife is a very powerful item. It allows us to add or change the Ash of War and the affinity on specific weapons. Let's talk about that for a bit. The Ashes of War are very powerful skills or special attacks that can be assigned to specific weapons that can have their Ashes of War changed. We can buy Ashes of War from Bernard, an NPC we'll encounter in a future chapter, or by defeating shiny scarabs that are scattered across the map. In our Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree journey, we will find unique or legendary weapons with unique Ashes of War that cannot be changed. In many cases, we can create a build around that specific unique weapon or Ash of War, but against certain bosses may not be very efficient. Also, we can find non-unique weapons that have a specific Ash of War that we want to use on our weapon. In certain cases, we can assign to that non-unique weapon we just found another Ash of War that we don't need, and that will allow us to use its original Ash of War, that now became available to use, onto our weapon of choice. Also, it is important to note that we cannot assign any Ash of War to any weapon. Certain Ashes of War can only be assigned on daggers or swords, for example, other ones only on colossal weapons. Therefore, it is important to know if the Ash of War we want can be used with our weapon, and also the type of damage and scaling we'll have in specific affinity. As previously mentioned in this massive guide, this video being the first chapter, we'll be using Great Stars with Wild Strike's Ash of War, at least in the beginning to mid-game. Affinities determine an armament's attribute scaling, attack power, guard boost, guarded damage negation, as it can be applied on both weapons and shields. Affinities change the type and the amount of damage a weapon can deal, like physical, magic, fire, etc. Also, the affinities can change the scaling of the weapon, S scaling being the best, then A, B, C, D, and E being the worst. By selecting an Ash of War with heavy affinity, our weapon damage will scale better with strength. In keen affinity, the damage scales better with dexterity. Quality means that the damage scales well with both strength and dexterity. Fire affinity adds fire damage to a weapon and damage scales better with strength. And by selecting Flame Art affinity, damage scales better with faith. By selecting Lightning affinity, the damage scales well with dexterity, and selecting Magic affinity, damage scales better with intelligence. In Occult affinity, damage scales better with Arcane. There are also Cold, Poison, and Blood affinities that will apply certain status effects. Cold affinity adds Frostbite build-up to the weapon. With each successive hit, we apply this status effect, and when procs, it will deal percentage life damage plus an additional 30 damage to the enemy. Also applies a very powerful debuff that will increase damage taken by the enemy by 20% for 30 seconds. It is important to note that this status effect will not begin building up again until its duration expired or has been removed by dealing fire damage. Applying Frostbite status effect that eventually will proc and removing it through fire damage, reapplying Frostbite through successive hits, dealing fire damage again, and keep repeating this process represents a powerful strategy that can be very effective against certain bosses or foes in Elden Ring or Shadow of the Erdtree. Poison affinity adds poison build-up status effect to the weapon, and we can apply it with successive hits. Once triggered, the poison will do damage over time in small amounts. Damage can be increased by using Mushroom Crown or Kindred of Rot's Exaltation Talisman that we'll find in a later chapter. It's worth mentioning that the poison status effect do not stack. While the poison status effect is active, we cannot build more poison status effect by reapplying it, as we need to wait until the current poison status effect duration ends. The blood affinity adds blood loss or hemorrhage status effect to the weapon that can proc once enough blood loss buildup has been applied with each successive hit. Once triggered, it will deal damage representing certain percentage of enemy's life, plus 100 or 200 additional damage based on the weapon we use. This is one of the most powerful status effects in the game, because if it's triggered often enough, it can melt enemies' HP that are not immune to bleeding. That being said, there are bosses and enemies in Elden Ring and Shadow of the Erdtree that are immune to bleeding, and in these cases we need to adopt a different strategy. The damage can be increased even further by using the White Mask or Lords of Blood Exaltation Talisman that we'll find in a later chapter. Now let's talk briefly about the Golden Seeds, Sacred Tears, and Flask of Wonders Physic. Golden Seeds allow us to upgrade the number of Crimson and Cerulean Flasks, but we can call them Life and Mana or FP Flasks. These golden seeds can be discovered next to small golden trees that we will find in our journey in Elden Ring by defeating certain spirit trees or specific bosses. We start with 4 flask charges, and we will need increasing number of seeds to upgrade. Maximum is 14 flasks in total, life and FP. Also, we can allocate how many life flasks and FP flasks we use relative to the total we have. The Sacred Tears will allow us to increase the number of life and FP replenished with each use. Both Golden Seeds or Sacred Tear upgrades do not affect Flask of Wondrous Physic. Let's talk about it. Flask of Wondrous Physic is a very powerful flask. We can mix into it 1 or 2 different tiers that we will find throughout the game. It can have very powerful effects and also downsides. For example, for a short amount of time, it will increase the fire damage dealt, but our character will take increased damage. Or, while in mixed physic, successive attacks deal more damage. There are other very powerful effects that we will discover and use throughout the game. There are 2 types of weapons, normal and unique. The normal ones can be upgraded using smithing stones, and we can change their Ashes of War. The unique weapons can be upgraded using Summer Smithing Stones, and their Ashes of War cannot be changed, although there are few exceptions from these rules. Regular weapons can be upgraded to level 25. This requires 12 Smithing Stones for each rank from 1 to 8, each rank allowing us to upgrade 3 levels, and 1 Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone to upgrade from level 24 to 25 and reach maximum level for that weapon. The unique weapons require only 1 Somber Smithing Stone per level and 1 Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone to upgrade from +9 to +10. Both Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone and Somber Ancient Dragon Smithing Stone are very rare, and for this reason we need to be 100% certain that we want to upgrade that specific weapon to max level. We will cover in a future chapter the location of these very rare stones. A quick side note, if you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. It will help our channel a lot and it will be much appreciated. This gaming community is amazing and I cannot wait to share with you future builds and guides like this. Now let's go back to the guide. Once we reach Fort Faroth and rest at this side of Grace, Melina will reappear and will help us reach Round Table Hold. This will be our new base of operations moving forward. Here we can start few questlines just by talking and exhausting dialogues with certain NPCs, including the blacksmith, that will be of tremendous help throughout our journey in Elden Ring. Once we come back to Fort Faroth, we want to make sure we'll equip the torch and we'll level up before we go in, as we are going to lose the runes we have because our character will die, but not before we get 2 very important items. 1/2 of Dectus Medallion and Radagon Sword Seal, a very powerful talisman. At this stage in the game, it will be extremely valuable because once equipped, it will give our character +5 to Vigor, Endurance, Strength and Dexterity. This is equivalent of gaining 20 levels. Although when we look at the stats in the top right corner says level 9, our character is virtually level 29. But this is not it. Remember that flail weapon we picked up not long ago? Well, now is the time to slay the big dying dragon. Let's get its runes. Because the flail does bleed damage, it will make this process much faster. In the first 30 hits or so, barely does any damage, but when the bleed procs, deals percentage life damage. With a bit of patience and repeating this action will reduce the HP to a very low amount. Very important note, before we defeat the dragon, we need to make sure that our character will use the gold pickle fowl foot we picked up earlier and will receive 30% more runes for the next 3 minutes. Once the dragon is dead, we'll receive about 96,000 runes. At this stage in the game, this is amazing. It will boost our character from level 9 to 35. Let's level up. Considering we are going to use Bloodflame Blade and Poison Mist incantations, we need to allocate few points to reach 12 Faith and 10 Arcane. We'll allocate points to reach 21 Vigor, 18 Endurance and 21 Strength. These values are without the points offered by Radagon's Sword Seal, as in Level Up menu, these additional points are not being displayed. If we check our character status in Equipment menu, we'll notice that it has 26 Vigor, 10 Mind, 23 Endurance, 26 Strength, 18 Dexterity, 9 Intelligence, 12 Faith and 10 Arcane, while Radagon's Sword Seal is equipped. This is equivalent of a level 55 character, taking into account the 20 levels offered by Radagon's Sword Seal. This is a colossal increase in character's power in the first 30 minutes of the game. Now, let's get the 2 Smithing Stone 7 because they are very close to our location. Before we'll pick up one of Caelid's maps, a little detour to pick up a Rune Arc and a Somber Smithing Stone 9. It is so good we can pick up an endgame upgrading material right from the start. For our build this is not necessary, but since we are so close to its location I thought it's worth pointing it out. Rune Arcs are very powerful consumables. Once we defeat a Shardbearer boss we'll receive their Great Rune. Once we activate that specific Great Rune, about how to do that in a future chapter, we can use that specific power or effect by consuming a Rune Arc. But if our character dies, we'll need to consume another Rune Arc to activate it again. And this concludes our first chapter as part of this massive project of covering the entire game from creating our character to defeating the last boss. I hope you'll join us in future chapters as well that will be posted soon on this channel. If you enjoyed this video, feel free to give it a like and don't forget to subscribe. It will help our channel a lot and it will be much appreciated. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. All the best. Bye.